All right, we're jumping in a time machine today, all the way back to the 4th century. We're going to unpack one of the most unusual and, frankly, brilliant theological ideas you've probably ever heard of. A thinker named Gregory of Nyssa came up with this cosmic plan to save humanity, not with a sword, but with a divine fishhook.
But that raises a huge question, right? How do you outsmart the ultimate deceiver? I mean, if you're up against an enemy whose entire game is deception, brute force isn't going to cut it. You need a strategy so clever it actually turns the deceiver's own nature against him.
And this is exactly the problem Gregory of Nyssa decided to tackle. He laid it all out with this incredible metaphor. He basically argued that the solution wasn't a battle of strength, but a brilliant divine sting operation. And yeah, you guessed it, at the very heart of this plan was a fishhook. So let's break down how this thing was supposed to work.
Now, the first thing we have to ask is the most obvious question. If God is all-powerful, why all the cloak and dagger stuff? Why not just flex some divine muscle and set things right by force? Well, for Gregory, the answer came down to one single, absolutely crucial concept: justice. And you can hear it in his own words right here. Gregory asks, where is the justice in this? See, for him, just showing up and using tyrannical power wasn't justice at all. To be truly righteous, the whole plan had to be smarter, more elegant. It meant God had to play by a certain set of cosmic rules, even when the opponent was the ultimate rule breaker.
So you've really got two paths here. On the one hand, you have tyrannical power. It's quick, it's forceful, but it's fundamentally unjust. And on the other hand, you have divine justice. This path is methodical, it's wise, and it's righteous. For Gregory, there was no real choice. For the plan to be truly good, it had to be the path of justice.
So, if brute force is off the table, what's the alternative? Well, that leads us to the next piece of this incredible puzzle, the ransom. The idea here is that if humanity is being held captive, a kind of transaction has to happen. But what on earth could be valuable enough to be the price?
So let's try to get inside the head of the deceiver for a second. What would he actually want? What price would be so amazing, so irresistible, that he'd willingly make the trade? The entire theory here hinges on understanding the captor's own greed.
And this part is absolutely key. The plan was never about forcing a deal. It was about presenting a payment so tempting that the deceiver would take it willingly. The whole strategy was designed to weaponize his own nature, using his greed as the very thing that would bring him down.
And this, my friends, brings us to the main event, the divine fishhook itself. It is the ultimate bait and switch. It's an idea that's so clever because it manages to satisfy justice, wisdom, and goodness, all at the same time. Let's really look at the components. Okay, so the plan has two simple parts. You've got the bait and you've got the hook. The bait was Christ's humanity. It's visible, it looks familiar, totally mortal, it's something the deceiver would absolutely find desirable. But hidden inside was the hook, Christ's divinity. Totally unseen, unbelievably powerful, and once it's swallowed, there is no escape.
And this just illustrates the idea perfectly, right from the source. The text says the good that was seen was the bait. Its only purpose was to hide the hook of divinity on the inside. It is, quite simply, a perfect trap, designed for a very, very specific target.
But you gotta ask, why was the disguise so important? Well, according to Gregory, showing up with the full, overwhelming power of divinity would be like trying to catch a fish by dropping a boulder in the lake. You just scare it away. The plan would be over before it started. That human disguise was essential to make the bait look like just another ordinary consumable meal.
And now we get to the climax. The bait has been set, the hook is perfectly concealed, and the trap is about to be sprung. The great deceiver is about to be deceived. And you have to admit, there's a perfect cosmic irony in that. So here's the play-by-play. First, the deceiver sees the bait. To him, it just looks like another mortal man, another soul to claim. Second, his own greed completely blinds him, and he swallows it whole. And then third, bam! He's pierced. He's caught on something he never saw coming, that hidden, inescapable hook of divinity. And just like that, the tables are turned. The trapper becomes the trapped. This quote just nails the logic, doesn't it? The whole sting operation depended on that image of the good, the humanity, acting as the lure. Without the bait, there's no trap. It was the visible, desirable part that made the invisible, powerful hook so incredibly effective.
So when you take a step back and look at the whole picture, what Gregory is describing isn't just some clever trick. For him, this is something much deeper. He sees it as the perfect synthesis of God's most important attributes, a plan where justice, wisdom, and goodness are all working together in perfect harmony.
Gregory's big conclusion is that this plan was the ultimate demonstration of that union. The will to save humanity in the first place? That's goodness. The brilliant, ingenious method used to do it? That's wisdom. And the final outcome, where the deceiver is justly caught? That is perfect justice.
Let's just break that down one last time. The goodness was the motivation, the why, the simple desire to rescue humanity. The wisdom was the strategy, the how, the whole divine fishhook idea. And the justice was the result, the deceiver getting undone by his own flawed nature, not by tyranny. That's what makes the victory a truly righteous one.
So the real takeaway here is that for Gregory of Nyssa, this whole thing was so much more than a transaction. The rescue of humanity was achieved through a plan so intricate, so intelligent, that it actually honored the principles of cosmic order instead of shattering them. It was a masterclass in divine strategy.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty big thought to chew on. This is a 1700-year-old idea about how justice can work, not through overwhelming force, but through wisdom and strategy. So, what can this ancient, wild metaphor of the divine fishhook reveal about our own, modern ideas of what it really means for justice to be served?